for spending your Thursday evening with us. It's exciting.
So I'd love to hear a little bit about your inspiration for Red Rooms. How did this kind of pop into your brain?
Yeah, well, it's been shaped a lot with the research, basically, because I try to follow what obsesses me as much as possible, because some filmmakers, they write about themselves, they write about their own stories, and they make the same film all over again, but which it can be super fine, but I try to like go completely crazy about one thing and then leave it on the side and then do another thing completely. But this particular story, years ago, I stumbled across the phenomenon of murder groupies, basically, and just we were wondering. I say we because the producer, Dominique Dussault, is with us. Dominique? Why, okay. So, producer of the film, the lone producer of the film, so she's the backbone of it all, and so if you have any questions regarding production, she'll jump in for sure. But Dominique was also there at the start. She's the first one to read everything. And so, yeah, just brainstorming with her also, we were like wondering where are the films about these people? Because I felt if you see it, these thrillers as like a triangle, you have a lot of films about the investigation, like the police side of it. There's fewer, but still a lot of films about the gloomy portrait of the killers themselves. But it felt like there was one component missing, which is the whole ecosystem that exists around the killers. And not only this, but like when I was watching, I'm not big into true crime, but then the pandemic happened, and everyone, and me included, watched too much. And so, but then there would be like one shot of the fans, and I was like, I want to film about them. This is what it's all about. And so the whole Tor network, like dark web, even the idea of having interactive crime, this came a bit later. And this came out of the necessity of two things, which is I didn't want the fictional killer of the film to be copy-pasted of a real case, because I didn't want the film to make any publicity to a killer. I think Netflix shows do that too much. And you make them win. Like if you do a show about Magnotta, which obviously did like a vein out of vanity and to be popular, and you give him a show, like he wins, like the joke's on us. But yeah, this is one thing. So I didn't want the film to be copied off of anybody real. This is one. But also interactive crimes made sense narratively, because then the actress, the groupie, quote unquote, could be very active in the story. Like it could create a bridge between the horrible acts and somebody who is bloodthirsty for that. And so and that led me to the rabbit hole of the whole folklore of the Red Rooms and all that. I never saw anybody die for real in my research, which is almost a feat, because it's but seriously, it's like no, it's almost because I did so much dark, depressing research, but then yeah, I tiptoed around. It's like, it's like seeing somebody dead is here, and I was always like circling around, like close but not quite, and maybe that's why you don't even see somebody dying in the film, like you just hear it, because this again is the kind of thing that I was experiencing while researching and trying to stay safe in the process, safe and sane in the process.
Well, what kind of research did you do to learn more about these like kind of murder groupies, and how did that help shape these two characters, yeah, Kellyanne and Clementine?
There was a blog of someone who was a fan of a killer that actually helped shape the Clementine character, I feel. Clementine is more rooted in reality than Kellyanne. Kellyanne is rooted in theory, and then she becomes, it's fun to have her become almost like a ghost, or someone who, I mean, she's real in the context of a film, but like she's not real. Like she has that aura. She, the film opens, she opens her eye. It's almost like she wakes up from a 1,000-year-old dream, sleep, and she literally disappears at the end. So anyway, with Kellyanne, we had more fun aesthetically. We were more expressionistic with the way we shaped Kellyanne. But Clementine is way more rooted in reality, let's say. And so there were like, yeah, blogs online, just fans, and the people who are fans of killers, I don't think they feel, I'm gonna generalize maybe a bit, but I don't think they feel that weird, because there's a community for everything. Like if you like anything, if you're into anything, you can find other people that are into the same thing as you. And so I think yeah, it kind of justifies your kinks and whatnot. But Clémentine is very much like Love is Blind, like she's confused and blinded, and she's this and there are people like this. There are people watching the Magnota video and are like, this is a trick, there's somebody behind the camera, there is, weird mental gymnastics. It goes very intensely. And so, yeah. But reading books, but not that many films, because not that many films just try to do that, and it's not because I seek originality at all costs, but it's just I'm a big movie lover. I watch tons of movies, and what's the point of making the film like a film that looks like another film that I like, or tries to do the same thing? Like I would rather just rewatch the 90s film that you know what I mean. So I always try to see the urge to create in cinema. For me, it comes from the urge to see something that I wish I could see, literally. And this is, in this case, this is the film that I'm missing. Yeah.
Well, what was the casting process in working with both of them in terms of Kellyanne and Clementine? I mean, obviously they're very different in their approaches to this case, but they're both such incredible actresses, and they both give incredible performances in this.
Yeah, thank you. So in Quebec, there is kind of a star system in the sense that, like in French Canada, Quebec, there's any Quebecois or any French-speaking people in the audience? No, maybe. Not this time. Oh, okay. Well, it's fine. We can keep speaking English. No. What was I saying? Yes, there is kind of a star system. So, like, people in Quebec, they could potentially be in films, short films, series, and whatnot. So, and I'm obviously a big fan of the local scene, so I would watch many things. And so, so both lead actresses, they're actual actresses. I'm mentioning this because I did films in the past with non-professionals, and sometimes it can bring amazing results, but this time around, these are all seasoned professionals. And so, but we did good old casting, like auditions, filmed auditions, and we found Kellyanne, like Juliette, who plays Kellyanne. We found her quickly. We were pretty, like, we had a strong coup de cœur for her, and she was like, And now I think about the character, I think about her, so I'm like, there's no point bringing other actresses and like, let's give her the role. But then Clémentine was very hard to find because she's such a tricky character to play. On paper, she works, but in practice, she doesn't, and because it's very, in real life, when you find someone annoying, like you leave them there, you leave them in this box of you're annoying and I want nothing to do with you. But I also wanted her to win you over and to be this beacon of warmth, and I almost wanted the audience to want to give her a hug. But it's very hard with a limited amount of screen time to have someone that starts from being like, oh, you're confused and annoying, and end with like, oh, you're actually like a human and you're stranded, but like I feel for you, with kind of a limited-ish screen time. And Laurie played it well. Because we saw good actresses in auditions and we're like, oh, it's either way too conspirationalist or way too, I don't know, like it was very, very hard to play. It's a narrow line. And so, yeah.
Well, I think one thing that's super interesting is the way that you incorporate the video of the Red Room. How much or how little did you think about that when you were writing, because about how much you wanted to actually show versus not showing?
Sure. Well, I think not showing can make the film more potent. Actually, it's not. The act of not showing is not me shying away from the subject matter. It's actually quite the opposite. It's like I cast this hex on you. It's like you conjured up these images, you deal with them. And sound is powerful. Sound is a good tool to tell stories with. But when some people ask me this, I'm tempted to also answer, but the film shows something else in reverse. I think it's more interesting to show their reaction there, because that's even the image we use a lot in the promotion of the film, is the image of like Kellyanne watching it being very oddly, icily stoic, and you're like, oh, okay, if you didn't know she was fucked up, like this is the one. and then on the other side, you have the other character that acts like a regular human would, I guess, and so being very kind of, yeah, it's traumatizing, it's very horrifying, and so showing their faces told a better story than seeing the limb of a 13-year-old being cut off, I felt. Not only this, but also I see the trick in this. Gory images, they never work. I don't think they do. It's like, oh, nice prosthetics. To me, this is what it does. It's like, and I didn't want you to judge my prosthetics. I wanted you to be horrified by it, and be horrified by it, but also be horrified by the fact that you wanted to see it. Maybe not. It's up to you. Some people did, because we just talked about it a bit earlier. But like, because you were like, oh no, I don't want to see it. And this is you, and this is amazing. You're a good human. No judgment. I'm kidding. But I'm kidding. But there is no, because it does trick on you. Like if you watch a thriller, you want shit to hit the fan. You want blood and guts. You want something to happen, and it's a slow burn. Like it slowly takes its time. Like you want a reward. Like I've been patient. I want to see something, and so but when you don't see it on the one hand. But on the other hand, it's a horrible scene. And so it plays that trick on you, like, why did I want to see it? But then the film plays another trick on you because you cheered for her to win the video of the snuff at the end. Yeah.
Well, I also think there's a lot of interesting commentary about being hyper online. You know, you think about the ending of the film, you think about when Clementine, you know, obviously like calls into the talk show, and the way you incorporate like headlines and local news and stuff like that, you know, what did you want to kind of say about kind of being on the internet and all of that within the context of this and the serial killer kind of bloodlust?
Well, the internet is real, and yet I don't think people act the same way. It's just like, no, like you go on any message boards and you're like, no, you would never tell this to that person's face. Like, why? So it either tells you two things about humanity, is that either people are lying when they're behind the keyboard, or this is what real humans, like this is what deep down you think and you wish you could say to people's face, and either way humanity is really doomed. So internet, I spent a lot, I'm very online, I'm pretty geeky, as you can tell, doing this film. I also had consultants though, like I'm not that big into like the intricacies of the Tor network or this or that, but I had other people. I actually had someone who did a live stream on Tor to be like, oh, this is technology possible now, because it wasn't a year ago. And so we were pretty intense about the research about the internet. I wanted to show, well, it just stems from the question. I was kind of wondering, how is our empathy doing by watching so much content, by being so online, and especially it was conceived during the pandemic. So during the pandemic, I was watching even more films, and I was even wondering, like, okay, so I rewatched Cannibal Holocaust, and it didn't do anything to me, and like, am I okay? What's wrong with here? And so. How is our empathy doing, guys? This is kind of like the big question on top of it all. There's that for the online component, but there's also a big place for the media. Like there's screens everywhere in this film, as there are screens everywhere in people's lives, I think, now. But the media has an important place, because the film talks about fandom of killer, and there would be no fans if they wouldn't create the myth around the killers. I think, like, it's not like I'm not anti-media by saying this. It's just like there is kind of and they're starting to think more about this. You know, they don't name the shooters as much, for instance, or like try to focus the stories more on the victims. But then you have a new Ted Bundy show on Netflix, and people binge that. So it's like, how can we win?
We have time for a couple of questions from the audience, if anyone has anything. All the way right there in the middle.
I was fascinated that the mother, if I remember her name correctly, Francine Beaulieu, kind of functioned as the antagonist in the film.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to know, given that she's the mother of a 13-year-old who has been murdered, it's an unusual choice. And I'm just curious how you went about designing and achieving that, and how conscious it was.
This is so funny, okay? Because, so again, this is another professional actress that wasn't too exposed. Just I'll answer, but like the idea of having actors that weren't too exposed was also to, I think we believe these characters even more, like sometimes, because it's nothing against actors that we see a lot, because some of them are very good, but sometimes I think like you accept, the film only works if Kellyanne is a pure enigma. like if you see an actress you know of, or you would see the disguise, you would see the artificiality of it. So even within the what I was calling the Québécois like small star system, I was even trying to be mindful of having people that were a bit less exposed and to create that kind of alternate fake true crime universe. Start with that at least, and then the film indulges in expressionism and finishes almost in the superior. But yeah, so Francine, so again, she's a very good actress. She was doing her auditions and she moved us to tears. And I'm like, oh, point being is that I didn't see her as an antagonist. But then we did test screenings and people are like, oh, I hate the mother. and like, she's way too, like, I don't know, like people had all different complaints, but lots of complaints. And I'm like, oh my God, like, okay, people don't empathize with her at all. And so we actually had to take takes where she was not too over the top or like not too, because I think we root for Kellyanne. Like I knew I tried to have Kellyanne be obviously the vehicle of the film, but I think I underestimated how she's cool protagonist, you know? No, like she's yeah. The same way you would you follow Travis Bickle and all the numerous iterations of Travis Bickles in cinema. There just aren't that many women Travis Bickles, obviously. So here's another one. Maybe there's a few. But yeah, and so since Kellyanne is our anchor, yes, she does appear to be the antagonist. But it's very weird, like it wasn't conceived this way. Like I was always trying to have her, and not only, I wanted even Kellyanne to be, because Kellyanne, okay, she tries to learn humanity, like she almost studies Clementine, like she almost, okay, this is how a human being with emotion acts, you know, she's almost this reptilian trying to understand like what is it to be human, and she somehow has this burgeoning, I think, at least that was the intent, maybe it didn't work, but the intent was like maybe this burgeoning empathy is like the can of worm is open, and so now she may have empathy for like the victim of the, you know, because she would mindlessly consume the atrocious crimes, but the atrocious crimes, they have extremely real consequences in real life and the disastrous psychological consequences on, let's say, the mother. And so I wanted even Kellyanne to become softer a bit towards the mother, like look at her at first a bit like the opponent, but eventually almost being won over by her grief. But I don't think it translates as much. So I don't know how to answer this. She just happens to annoy people. I don't know why. But maybe it didn't annoy you. But.
Right there in the hat.
Why racquetball?
Squash.
Why racquetball?
It makes perfect aesthetic sense because I love glass cages in this film. Obviously, the killer is in a glass cage, the condo is a glass cage, anything cubic and transparent I love. And so in the first drafts of the screenplay, she was swimming. Like I just wanted her to do a sport, but yeah, it came as an epiphany. I'm like, oh my, say squash is like perfect. And not only was it perfect, but the actress had to learn to play squash, Juliette. And learning squash, that's she said this a lot in interviews, but like she got very closer to the character because the sound, the reverberation, being you along with yourself, you play. I don't know, it's something mathematical, the way the ball bounces, and it really got her close to Kellyanne somehow. So I don't know, maybe you can play squash and not be sociopathic, but I don't play squash. But it's just like it made very. She's someone, she would not do a team sports, for instance, right? I mean, it's pretty obvious. So I was kind of looking at what are individual sports, and to me the two ones that popped were like video workouts and squash. These are the ones. But, yeah.
Up there in the back.
I stepped out, so I'm not sure if this was touched on, but I was wondering about the motivation between Kellyanne's career, just because to me I feel like the contemporary notion of a model is very rooted in like an online or like screen presence.
The motivation behind Kellyanne being a model.
Yeah, sure. So, okay, so I'm not making a shortcut that like models are weird, but it did make sense for Kellyanne, I think, because Kellyanne, it's pretty clear that she indulges in fantasy, right? Let's at least all agree on that, because there can be various interpretations about Kellyanne, her motivations in the film, why she do what she does, and Why? Oh. But this is fun, and I'm not going to answer too much on these questions because these are for you to discuss, and this is what's fun. When I went to see a Michael Haneke film, like when I went to see Caché in 2005, I was kind of young-ish, but like people didn't want to go home in the lobby of the cinema. There were like spontaneous conversations popping up in the lobby, and this was amazing. Like, okay, I can exchange theories with a total stranger. Power of cinema right there. And so, okay, so there's that. But Kellyanne being a model, I think she's into, again, fantasies, and she wants to be invisible on her own terms, but she also wants to, she exists by being terminally online. She exists. If she's online, she exists almost, if it makes sense. But she doesn't want her real self to be exposed. Like I think she's at least a bit aware that what she consumes and her hybristophilia, if we want to call it that, like her love of watching like the macabre and the sordid stuff, it's not that okay, let's say. But her idealized versions of herself being out there is kind of a powerful for her, I think. And so yeah, it made sense on various levels. What more can I say about this? No, if it answers, I don't know. I could expand, I guess, but yeah.
We have one more right there.
Kind of a simple question, but I was just curious. Was the killer's name Ludovic? Was that an intentional reference to gore and to the Ludovico technique?
No, I forgot about that.
Yeah,
You're right. You forgot about that.
Watching the screen, watching all these horrible things.
No, it's such a blunt, boring answer, but it's a tribute to my lawyer cousin, whose name is Ludovic, and he was not because he's a creepy dude, but because he's a lawyer, and he's one of the first lawyer consultants of the film. So I thought it was funny to name the killer after the guy, like my cousin who helped me out. So that's for Ludovic. Chevalier has meaning though. Chevalier means knight. And she's into, these Lady of Shalott fantasy, and if you know a bit about that, it makes sense. And her being in the tower, like the magical window being the computer. Anyway, you can Google that if you want. But Chevalier made sense. Ludovic made no sense. So that's fun. Okay, yes, it's true, c'est vrai, c'est la technique Ludovico.
Well, thank you everyone so much for joining us tonight.
Merci,
Everyone, thank
thank you.
Pascal for joining us. And tell everyone you know to come see Red Room. Thank you.
Merci, thank you.